Hello, dear listeners. In today's episode, I talk about a drink called Moon Brew, which is like a hot cocoa that I have almost every night that helps you go to sleep. It has magnesium in it and a bunch of other wonderful things. And I use it whenever I'm feeling a little bit restless. And I wanted to share a cozy update with you. I am a Moon Brew affiliate now. So one of my favorite cozy things, and it helps me sleep. So, if you are interested in purchasing that, you can use the code Cozy with Chelsea when you check out, and it will save you 20%. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Hello, and welcome back to Cozy with Chelsea. I am Chelsea, your host, and today my guest is also a Chelsea. So, love her name. After leading global brands like Adidas, Reebok, and Crocs, Chelsea traded in her corporate role to help women heal from the inside out. Through her Healthy Hustle method, she's helped more than 200 busy women, many of them moms, leaders, entrepreneurs, release weight, balance hormones, and restore energy without fad diets or endless cardio. She works with clients around the world using functional medicine lab testing and targeted protocols to address root cause imbalances like stress, gut health, and burnout. Her mission is to empower 1 million women to heal their hormones and elevate their lives. And I do love her name. Welcome to the podcast, Chelsea.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
I wondered if you could first start. It's quite, an interesting bio. I wonder if you can take us back to the career you've had and the change that you made. And yeah, tell us a little bit about what you do.
I ran myself into the ground in corporate, as I'm sure most of your listeners have also done or are currently doing. And, I worked in e-commerce and digital for global brands. And so this was a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, a lot of, cracking the laptop open at 11 p.m. to put out fires and being in back-to-back meetings all day while also trying to do your actual job. And it's funny, as I started to grow in corporate, I just started to see the time to myself lessen and lessen. So more meetings, more demands on my time. And all the while, I am the type of person who has pretty healthy habits. I was a college athlete. I've always been kind of the healthy girl in the office who was eating salads and doing spin. And even so, I started to not look and feel the way I usually do. And so, I never had a thing where I gained 50 pounds, but I've also had situations where I'm not fitting in my jeans and I'm not sleeping well. I'm really having trouble falling asleep, things like that. And so that kind of led me down a quest of trying to figure out how to release weight. And I kind of stumbled upon holistic healing through healing your gut, healing your hormones. And it became very clear to me that my body didn't have the resources it needed to actually perform at a level where I was teaching spin on the side. I was in an office 60 hours a week. I was commuting an hour each way and my body couldn't keep up. And I didn't realize that. And so it took me until I was about 28 to really start to dive into this. And I started listening to the podcast, looking for practitioners and looking for content like yours and really trying to figure this out, because the reality is I had a type 2 diabetes diagnosis from a doctor at 27 and I had PCOS and my cycle was not regular. I just kind of didn't understand why, as a high performing woman, I was doing all the things I thought I was doing right, yet I had these bad diagnoses. I didn't look or feel good. My skin was starting to break out. I was starting to lose my hair. And I was like looking around at the women around me and they were all in the same exact position. So it's like, okay, this is common. But what I learned later as I became a practitioner myself is that this is not normal. And women really need the tools and the skills to keep their hormones in balance through every phase of their life. And so I always say, what I teach women to do is not how to do a crash diet and get skinny, though that is certainly a result that my clients have, not through fad diets, but they do release a significant amount of weight faster than any other methodology because they balance their hormones first. And this is truly the number one skill that I think these busy, driven women need in today's society, whether they're a mom, whether they're a working mom, whether they own a business, or whether they're in a corporate role. Like, this skill set, and I say skill set, is so incredibly important for women to learn. So that's why I started scaling my business. I started working with more clients. I started helping women, women like my mom, who, she's a very ambitious woman. She's working 60, 70 hours a week. And so she's went through menopause. She gained 20 pounds and she lost all of it and then some. And now she's lower than her college weight. And I started working with, the VPs at my company and people were just asking for my opinion. And eventually I got too many clients because this is such a rampant issue that I eventually left my job. So I've been out of it for about a year now. And I've helped over 250 women release weight without cardio and fad diets. And it's been a really amazing experience.
I mean, that's something that I have struggled with myself, is especially as a high performing woman. I had a lot of chronic stress for a long time. And I know that has a direct impact on your overall health, but especially your weight. What do you think are the key signs that someone's struggling with that? Because I think sometimes people don't even know, right, what's causing the imbalance. I mean, I heard you say losing your hair. What does that look like?
You know, it's so funny because most women are just not problem aware because it's so normal. And especially in the US, it's like if you are stressed in any kind of stressful role, these things are just kind of, they're just like, oh, this is part and parcel of being a manager or being a mom. And it's like, or, turning 40, everyone says, oh, I'm just getting older. And I'm like, no, that's not the case. Your hormones are imbalanced and there's so much you can do about it. And so the key kind of red flags to look for are not the full list of these symptoms, but typically it's a collection of a couple of them. Like maybe 2 to 5 is typically what I see. So number one is just weight gain. And that doesn't mean that you're just eating a little bit more and you're starting to gain weight, but it's like you're starting to see weight around the middle. You're starting to see kind of like hips and belly and thighs, hair loss, any kind of skin or breakout issue. So this doesn't have to just be acne. This could be things like eczema, psoriasis, any kind of skin condition is a sign that your hormones could also be off. And this is typically coupled with a gut issue, bloating even after healthy meals. So especially as the day goes on, if your belly is starting to expand and your pants fit differently at the end of the day is a little bit of a red flag. Not having daily bowel movements. I always joke that like, my clients were always talking about our number twos. Like, we got to make sure that we are having a daily bowel movement. If not, it's a sign that our nervous system is just completely cooked. Disrupted sleep. So, trouble falling asleep, staying asleep. So, typically like 2 or 3 a.m. wake ups, but also waking up feeling exhausted even after a full night's sleep. So, any of those are an indicator. And then cravings, especially in the afternoon, for either salt or sugar.
I know a lot of people that struggle with a lot of those key things. And I love that you say it's common, but it's not normal, because it's so common. It's just so regular to, I mean, I guess maybe regular is not the right word, but I think a lot of people do really struggle with a lot of those key indicators, but don't understand the deeper underlying issue of balancing your hormones and your gut health. So, what does it look like? I mean, when you work with your clients, where do you start?
Depends on the client, but for most women, we just need to get them in the program and get them out of survival mode. And so what that looks like is kind of high impact micro habits that actually kind of deliver a quick result fast so that they can build self-belief, so that they can believe that this is possible. And, the fastest way to change how you feel is the food you put in your body. And so we typically start with, just making some basic swaps for things that they're currently eating if we think that it may be inflaming them. And so a lot of the time, it doesn't mean you have to eat a perfect diet, but it does mean, hey, like, let's cut out a couple things in the short term that might be inflaming you. And it's different for everyone. But, for a lot of people, if we just take a couple weeks off gluten and dairy, just a couple weeks, these women feel so, so different. So even just little swaps like that are very high impact, but they're also not easy because, I mean, everyone's eating a processed diet. They don't even know what gluten is. They're like, is there rice and like gluten and rice? Like, we don't even know what this is. And so there's a little bit of education there, but it's also like, okay, if we're not eating this, what are we eating instead? So we kind of swap it out with stuff that's really similar. So that makes it a little bit more manageable, but it's also just like getting these women out of survival mode and getting them sleeping. Sometimes I'll recommend specific functional medicine protocols or supplements to help just thwack them back into place if they want to move really quickly. There are some women who don't even use supplements and they're totally fine. It just depends on their values and their goals. But I would say like focusing on sleep and food is one of the fastest ways to really produce results.
I absolutely agree with that. I think sleep is so important and something that can go unseen. People, they feel like they have to do things instead of sleep, which is important.
Which is so crazy because, I mean, I would say, maybe tell me if this resonates with you, because it certainly was my story. It's like when you hang your worth on your productivity and how much you're outputting, it is so hard to give yourself permission to rest, whether that's actually going to sleep, working late, not holding boundaries with yourself about what your body actually needs in order to care for yourself. Like, we have this big self-love movement where we're all talking about self-love, and it's like, what even is that? It's like having the respect for your body to actually prioritize yourself, right? And so I think for a lot of women, they're not doing that because they think that if they slow down and if they're resting and they're not working, they're not valuable, or they're going to be perceived a certain way. And so this is kind of where we get to do that deeper level of mindset work to see what that's really about for these women.
Yep, that's what I was just going to ask, is what does that mindset work look like? Because it does resonate. And listen, I'm a fan of self-love. I love loving yourself. I think that's great. But there is a difference between self-love and self-respect.
Mm.
And the two can go together. But self-respect is actually showing up for yourself and keeping the promises that you make to yourself. So, what does that mindset work look like with your clients?
So we always have to start with the why. We can't really do any quote mindset work. People don't even know what that is, right? But let's talk about it, because I think we can probably offer a unique perspective on this between the two of us. Because first, we have to start with the why, because no one is going to do any kind of mindset work unless they have a reason to do it. It's not like anyone raises their hand and is like, yeah, I'm going to go pay someone to do some mindset work with me today. That's not a thing. And so for most of these women, it's like, hey, where do you want to go? Like, what result do you want in your life that you don't have now? And for a lot of these women, it's, I feel uncomfortable in my body. I want to lose. And they have to actually say it out loud, because some women are afraid to say, I want to lose weight, because there's like shame associated with wanting to lose weight. It's oftentimes when I'm on calls with potential clients, it's the last thing they say, where they're like, oh, I just want to feel better. I want my cycle to be better. And I'm like, yeah, but like, if your body doesn't change 6 months from now and you don't look any different, how would that feel? And they're like, oh, that would be terrible. I want to lose 30 pounds. And I'm like, okay, like, we have to get really clear on the goalposts, right? Because when we don't desire something, we're not going to do the deeper mindset work. And so what I see with clients is we have to understand the gap between where they are and where they want to go. And a lot of that is beliefs that we hold to be true about ourselves that are not really helping us produce results. And so let me give you a couple examples of just beliefs that women hold that are kind of preventing them from moving forward. It's like, number one, if I slow down, I'm going to fall behind. And therefore they overstimulate themselves. They're on their phone all day. But that also produces snacking and dopamine depletion that makes them reach for food every day. And then before they know it, an entire bag of chocolate chips is gone. And they're like, oh my God, I don't even know what's going on. And so we kind of have to find those little beliefs that women believe to be true about themselves and start to kind of peel back the layers and neutralize them. I would say the other piece is really working on things like perfectionist mindset, where women come in and they're like, I'm either all in or I'm all out. And I did a podcast episode on this that really unpacks this, of how to move through this, because the reality is high performers always have that belief, like, it has to be perfect. And it's like, okay, but is that really working for you? Like, is that mindset actually working, where you're like, I'm either perfect or I'm completely off the wagon? Because if you're coming to me, chances are it's not working. And so we have to kind of revise our mindset to be like, okay, directional correctedness and showing up to the best of our ability for what's most important to us in this moment is way more important than following and white knuckling a plan, because those are not different. I always say, like, if the body you want is requiring you to suffer and to count calories and to not enjoy your life, it's not the body for you. So we get to find that middle ground where it's like, it's not perfect, but it's not a mess. It's somewhere in the middle, and that's okay. And every day it's going to look different. So it's kind of like about, I call it increasing your bounce back rate. It's like, how can we really make the time that you spend off the wagon as short as possible before you make the next best choice? And so we're not having a full day where we just like wallow in our pain and eat whatever we want. It's like, okay, we had the pizza for lunch. Let's just like not be weird about it and just get back on track. Go for a walk, have a nourishing dinner. Like, let's not be so dramatic. Oh, I messed up. Like, end of the world is like, oh my gosh, it's not a big deal. Like, this food is there to be enjoyed, which is why I talk about like 80% whole foods, 20% soul foods, because you should never be restricting yourself. And so when these women can give themselves permission to mess up, that's where they can stay in the game a little bit longer.
I relate to that too. I mean, I spent a long time, especially in my early 20s, where I do fall, okay, I'm in the perfectionist area and I do fall into the all or nothing trap. And it's something that I've been working on for a long time, and still it comes up, still it's something that I struggle with. But it was always like, okay, I'm going to stick to this plan and I have to be 100% perfect the whole time. And then that one slip up, like you said, pizza for lunch or whatever that is, then it would just cascaded into into doom. So I think that's huge. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest mindset shifts I can think of for women who are struggling with something like that is to allow yourself to have those moments, but keep moving forward.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, why are we not giving ourselves margin for error? It's actually a really clever self-sabotage pattern, you know? It's like, we know it's not going to be perfect, so we're just going to set these arbitrary rules and then just find ourselves right back where we started because we're afraid of change, right? And so, like, kind of neutralizing that pattern and also understanding where it came from. What you're describing is so common. So if I had a client who came to me and was like, I'm always wanting to slam the boxes and for it to be perfect, but it's not working. I'm like, okay, what other ways is this showing up in your life? If you had to name this feeling in your body, what would it be? And a lot of the time it's like fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of rejection, abandonment. And it's like, okay, well, when's the first time you felt that way? And they're like, oh, I don't know, like when I was 8 years old, my mom told me I should probably eat less pretzels. It always goes back to something. There's always a reason for that behavior, right? And so when we can really understand where it comes from, we can kind of start to get our shovel out and excavate it a little bit so we can really neutralize it and move forward so the patterns don't keep us stuck anymore. Because the reality is your body remembers those things. It's not even just on a brain level. It's like your body remembers these feelings. And so if we can really understand them, we can start to rewire.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's subconscious work, really, that you're doing
Mhm.
and rewiring all of those neural pathways and with the limiting beliefs that they have, right? You're taking them from the limiting belief and moving into something a lot more positive that produces actual results instead of falling into the fear of failure trap over and over and over again. I think that's great work that you're doing.
Yeah, that's right.
I heard you also say gut health, which I guess we touched on a little bit, which is, I'm sure, obviously changing the food, like you said. But what does that look like? I mean, I feel like it's often tied together, right? If you're having high stress, your hormones are going to be out of balance, your gut health is not going to be good. Can you explain the connection?
Oftentimes they go together. So your hormones can impact your gut impacts your hormones. And so we always talk about something called the brain gut connection, right? And that's, let me just give you an example of how this shows up. So when you are stressed, your stress hormones are really, really elevated. So a lot of your other hormones will drop. And so oftentimes when we are in fight or flight, when we have the elevated cortisol, our digestion shuts down. And this becomes a problem because if you have food in your stomach, it's just not getting digested. It's fermenting and it's also creating junctures in your intestines that make your gut a little bit more permeable, which means it's not really firing at its fullest. So, the stress can actually create gut issues, but also gut issues, it kind of like goes in this loop, right? Because if you have gut issues like an overgrowth of bacteria, which is very, very common in stressed women, this could be from anything from being on antibiotics, birth control, processed foods. Like there's so many high stress, like all of this can cause a gut imbalance with yeast, bacteria, sometimes parasites even. I would say that's less common, but it does happen. Things like H. pylori. So there's an actual infection of the stomach or the digestive tract. And that causes your cortisol to elevate. And that is often going to come at the expense of your women's sex hormones. So I can't tell you how many lab tests I see where they have some kind of gut issue. They also have, either estrogen dominance or maybe their progesterone is super low, but their cortisol is through the roof. And so we get to work on hormones and gut together because you can't address one in isolation. You kind of get to work on all of them at the same time.
I mean, that would be the holistic approach, right?
Yeah.
It was like 10 years ago. I went to a naturopath and my cortisol was so high at the time. And I didn't even know what that meant, honestly. And I didn't keep going to her, but years later it was still there. Just years and years of chronic high cortisol, and it absolutely has an impact on you. I think too, it's interesting that you mentioned these recurring infections because I also think maybe sometimes women don't talk about it so openly. So it's kind of nice that I guess we're talking about it right now. Because before I started doing all of this work, I had a recurring yeast infections for years. I had like 15 in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely, it was all related to everything being out of whack, at least for me, constant high stress. So I'm assuming that's something that you see pretty regularly too.
Recurring yeast infections and UTIs. I mean, obviously there's certain things having to do with the pH, and sometimes it's like maybe you have a partner where the pH is not pHing, but a lot of the time it's a systemic issue, right? Like it could be a yeast overgrowth anywhere in your body. It could be a bacterial overgrowth that's producing these symptoms. So yeah, I mean, if you're having recurring UTIs or yeast infections, like it's a sign that there's something going on underneath the hood, and we got to figure out what it is so we can resolve it at the root.
I might cut this because it's kind of gross, but I was having oral yeast
Yeah.
infections was most of it,
Ah.
which was crazy because I would go to doctors and they were so confused. They did not understand. Like they assumed I got what they assumed I had was HIV, like over and
What?
over and over again because yeah, that's what
What?
I had to get tested for it so many times because they thought it
Is that a
was
symptom?
due to yeah, so it is. It's from a suppressed immune system. But they were saying usually for
Hmm.
oral thrush is what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
Typically, it's associated with a highly suppressed immune system. But I think that's what I had, but it was just due to chronic stress and also alcohol use. So once I kind of worked on both of those areas, it went away.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it sounds like there's probably just a yeast overgrowth. Like that's typically how it will present. Like you'll see yeast on
Yeah.
your tongue and your throat. Like it was probably like a digestive issue that
Hmm.
you've since resolved. And like, a lot of naturopaths will do testing around this and like help people with it, but that's just crazy that they thought it was HIV. I just like
I
I
know.
can't.
I know. Yeah,
The
it also was like very concerning to hear that.
like the utter panic. I
Yeah.
I
Uh,
just ridiculous.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a scary time
You
when
can
really it was
imagine.
like, you just need to chill out and stop drinking.
Do less and have less wine.
Yeah. But anyways, I think that also I mean, you work with high achieving women. So burnout, I'm assuming that's also common with a lot of women that you work with. And obviously, that high stress is what is causing burnout. But do you work with them on burnout specifically?
Yeah, so the way I see burnout is when your cortisol levels have been so elevated, and you know what cortisol is, but for those who are listening, it's like this is a stress hormone that's elevated anytime your body is stressed. But the problem is a lot of women don't even realize when their body is stressed, and they kind of just think work stress is the only type of stress. But the reality is there's stress on your body when you get sick, when you are fasted too long, when you're eating too much, when you're eating too little, when you're eating foods that inflame your system. That's a huge marker of elevated cortisol when you're not sleeping 8 hours a night. Like there's so many forms of stress that go beyond just a stressful email from my boss. And so understanding like the holistic lens of stress really helps women be like, oh, I'm more stressed than I thought I was. And then they see their cortisol test and they're like, oh, I should probably do something about this. But what's really interesting, Chelsea, is that most women who come to me looking for solutions haven't actually reached the burnout point yet. Because the way I see burnout is it's when the cortisol has been elevated for so long and then it just crashes. And what that shows up as is like they have no get up and go. Like their cortisol is not firing even in the morning when it should be. Because cortisol, it's not bad. It just has to be being produced in the right amounts at the right time. And so these women just suddenly stop producing cortisol. And it shows up as extreme fatigue, exhaustion, irritability. And so I would say like most women kind of get to almost the point of burnout, but they're not quite there because they're still like in fight or flight. So burnout and fight or flight are not the same thing. And so a lot of them, they're feeling kind of wired and tired, which is that final phase before burnout. But I
Mhm.
do also have some women who do get to that point and they're like, I just need to rebuild myself. And so we look at things like replenishing nutrient deficiencies that are depleted by stress. We look at things like boosting their morning cortisol. We look at, removing any kind of exercise in the short term. So we have the protocols for that to help them start to restore their cortisol curve. And that's where they start to see a pretty big difference. And with the right protocols, like you can move through burnout much more quickly than just kind of spinning your wheels on your own.
I think it's good to clarify that that constant fight or flight feeling isn't the same as burnout, though it might be a sign that you're heading towards burnout.
That's exactly right.
I think that's very important for anyone to know, I mean, women, but also men,
Mhm.
that if you're experiencing that, do something about it as quickly as you can right before you enter that burnout area.
I love that. I think that's so well said because most people, they don't feel bad enough to take action. Which is why, like, when I talk to women, I'm like, yeah, I mean, you could keep doing what you're doing. You could. It's just, it's not going to end well for you. And then you're going to have to work 20 times as hard to get yourself back into balance than you would by just like addressing this now and fixing this. And so it's like,
Mhm.
how do we look at this as preventative? It's like, okay, we get Botox when we're 25 to prevent wrinkles when we're 40, but we're not supporting our hormones in a way that's going to make things like perimenopause and preventing cancer and like having a long life better for us. Like, we don't love ourselves and respect ourselves enough to do that.
Absolutely. I think that's so important because it can seem minor, right? Even if you're having gut health issues, hormone imbalance, initially it's going to start out that way. But if you don't change something, if you don't move in a positive direction, it can lead to, yeah, much worse outcomes. So obviously we want to avoid that.
Yeah.
So no matter who you're working with, whether it's, someone who's experiencing burnout or someone who's in that fight or flight stage or someone who has chronic stress, what does the end goal look like or what does it look like when they return, right? Because not all of your clients are moving out of the positions they're in that are causing this stress. So how do you get them back into a place of balance?
There's two types of clients I work with. One has no intention to leave their current role. They want to stay in the game. And you shouldn't have to resign to fix the problem, right? Like, where we need to start is with tools. We need to give you tools of how to support yourself, protocols, things to help your hormones actually get firing. We need to teach you how to set boundaries. I just did a masterclass yesterday for moms who are returning to work, and like, the number one skill they need to learn is number one, hormone balance, but number two, how to set boundaries that actually help make them a better mom without completely sacrificing their careers. And so, like, for most women, it's just getting really clear on what their needs are and being able to advocate for them, because most women don't do that work where they actually like understand their needs. And as soon as they do that, they're suddenly able to like use the boundary framework that I teach to tell their husband what they need, to like give them a very clear brief of the support that they need in their life changes. And so there's so many tools and frameworks that help these women do that. But then there's a whole nother echelon of women who they go through, maybe they work with me for 6 months and they decide this job is completely cooked. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so then we do the work of, okay, you've healed your hormones, you've released all this weight, your energy is totally different. And so your capacity goes from here to here. And so suddenly they have all this energy and clarity because their brain fog's no longer there. Their gut's working, like they're fully firing, and they're like, oh, I want to start a business. I want to get a new role. And so that's where I kind of coach them through their next moves, right? So that's kind of the next layer for those women. But that's not the case for every woman. A lot of them want to stay in their roles. And so it's really just about helping them do that, but also understanding like the deeper emotions that underlie some of the stuff that goes on at work. And if they can learn how to regulate their nervous system, how to process emotions, how to advocate for themselves, they can actually make what they thought was before a really miserable job a lot better.
I think that especially for people who want to remain in the role that they have, setting boundaries is probably one of the top skills that they can learn. And I think it can be really scary, right? Doing that, especially if you're not used to it. And in a work setting, it's almost like, okay, if I set this boundary, what's going to happen? Am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get fired? If they're used to overextending themselves. Again, something that I can relate to because eventually I started setting boundaries. And it only produced more positive outcomes for me, though it was something I still had to work with. What's a common boundary that you see that women, especially in the workforce, struggle with that they could implement?
Most common one is after hours work. And it comes up a lot of the time with, I mean, with anyone of any age, but particularly with women who have kids at home. And they're like, well, I got to do pick up and drop off, but like, I don't want to look like a slacker. And what I think is great is I think a lot of workplaces are starting to be more accepting of women who have kids who need to drop the kids off. They need to leave early. The kids say, like, we're getting there. We're getting there, but we're still not there. And I think a lot of women still feel a feeling about being able to ask for that. And they're afraid they'll be perceived a certain way or fired or whatever it is. Insert the fear or anxiety here. So for a lot of these women, it looks like creating a very simple, like, if then statement that, like, first we got to map out, like, what exactly is the boundary? Like, what's the actual need that I have that's not being expressed? And for a lot of these women, it's like, the reality is I want time with my kids from 5 to 7 so I can do pickup, feed them, put them to bed. I just need the 5 to 7. That's all I need. And then after that, I can get back online or whatever it looks like for them. So then it's kind of just putting a simple statement together and starting small, right? Like typically I tell them not to start with talking to their boss or talking to like their VP, but like maybe you start with people who report into you, or you start with colleagues. These little kind of less high stakes conversation where they say, hey, unfortunately, I'm not available from 5 to 7. That's pickup time, so it's not going to be possible for me to be on this call. If we have calls between 5 and 7, then I will need to watch the replay, or you can send me the notes and I'll get back online at 7. So very simple if-then framework methodologies. And most women are like, they freak out and they put the boundary forward one time because they're like practicing or whatever. And then someone pushes back on the boundary and they're like, it didn't work. And it's like, no, 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 this is how it works. You should expect people to push back on it, because anytime you're changing the dynamic of the relationship or the working relationship, it's like people will push back. And so you should expect them to challenge it a little bit, but know that that's part of the process. And you just get to reassert it and say, hey, yeah, like I said, 5 to 7 won't be online. So feel free to pull it earlier. We can pull it later. I'll be back online, or send me the recording. And so they just get to practice these little micro boundaries.
Yeah, I love starting small. I think that's really important for people who aren't used to setting boundaries.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be an overhaul overnight. You can pick one thing to start practicing with. I think that's great advice. And I also love what you have to say about upholding the boundary, right? That's the work that I do with my clients too, which is you do want to clearly state the boundary the first time, and then you can just continue to uphold it. And like you said, it's your first time doing this. They're absolutely going to push back. And that's because they're used to a different version of you.
That's right.
Yeah. I always, when I work with my clients, I tell them you don't even have to keep repeating the boundary. You can, you totally can, but you can also just do it.
Mhm.
You can just not work during that time. You know,
Mhm.
this is my schedule. This is my recurring schedule. I get my kids from 5 to 7. But I love that you work with women on setting boundaries. I think that's huge and something that we need a lot more of.
Yeah, it's a skill set, right? It's like the first time we use Excel, we suck at it, we learn at it, we learn the different functions, we practice it. It's like we get better at time. And so many women are like, I suck at boundaries. And it's like, yeah, because you're a beginner at boundaries. Like sometimes we have to accept that it's going to be messy at the beginning and we're going to suck at it and it gets better. And it's the same like boundaries don't work unless you, number one, if your hormones are imbalanced, setting a boundary is going to feel really hard because you're going to be completely
Yeah.
dysregulated. You're not going to be connected to yourself. You're going to feel really, there's going to be a lot of natural fear and anxiety. Like we kind of have to remember that the tools and scripts aren't going to save us if we're not internally regulated.
Yeah. Is that something common you see as you work on, like, let's get you to a better place first, give you some energy, and then we can work on this piece of setting boundaries?
Yeah, it's like the physical body is the prerequisite to do any deeper work, which is why so many
Mhm.
women will go to therapy, do whatever, but like they're not making progress is because their body hasn't caught up. And so I usually kind of flip the order of operations. It's like, let's get your body and brain actually firing so that you're not in survival mode and your brain's actually working. And then let's do the deeper work later.
Yeah. I mean, you want to make sure that you have the capacity to
Mm,
do the deeper work.
100%.
It's cheesy, but I think of, the airplane. You have to put on your mask before you put on the child's mask.
Mhm.
And it really is true, though. It's true. You have to get yourself to a place where you have the energy and the capacity to be able to do the deeper work.
Well, it's so interesting too because women, especially moms, because I know you probably have clients who are moms or maybe people managers, and it's like people are so quick to help other people and not work on themselves, not realizing that the biggest blessing, benefit, service they could do for their kids and their team is to make sure that they are firing at the highest version of themselves. If they are depleted, they feel like crap, they're irritable, they're barely holding on by a thread, it's like, do you think that is good for anyone? Because I don't. And so I think learning how to stop self sacrificing and start giving yourself the raw materials to actually look and feel the way you want to is going to help you be so much more impactful in your career. And that's why so many women, like, after they balance their hormones, that's when they start the business, or that's when the business they thought they were going to start starts to take off because they're actually 100% there in their full capacity. And it's like, I don't know, some people think I'm just a weight loss coach, but at the end of the day, it's helping women heal their hormones so that they can have a bigger impact and be better moms and be better leaders.
I can definitely see moms struggling with that, with overextending themselves and the boundary setting. I mean, it's just so common for a mom to feel the need to take care of her children before herself. And like we've said this whole time, that can lead to burnout. I am curious how you work with moms. Does it look different than people leaders? Obviously, there are moms who are also people leaders too. But I think with mothers, there's that added factor of it being their own children. What does that look like? Can you tell me more about that?
For moms, it does look slightly different. I have a lot of moms in a different program that's really focused on number one, the hormone balance aspect, which looks a little bit different for a woman who's postpartum than a woman who's, 10 years postpartum. But so it's a little bit more gentle, it's a little bit slower, it's a little bit more sustainable. But also, we need to focus on the identity shift that happens when you become a mom, because most women don't slow down to do this work and they just expect things to go back to normal. And they just hold themselves up against this standard of their pre-baby career, energy levels, body. And that's not to say that you can't release the weight and feel amazing just like you did before baby, because I see that all the time. I mean, the reality is most of my clients are actually lower than their wedding weight or pre-baby weight after balancing their hormones. But the body changes. You're a different person and the landscape of your life has changed. So to expect that we're just going to go back to what we were doing and having all this time to ourselves and being able to focus 110% on our career is no longer the case. We are split, but it doesn't mean we have to choose between one or the other. There are ways to actually make this sustainable. So for new moms, their nutrition plan might look a little bit different. They're not doing any crazy liver detoxification protocols. We're going to wait to do that till later. And it's the same for women who are going through menopause. We all need to be very cognizant of the different shifts that are happening in a woman's life and kind of like right size the protocols to that.
And I think that's just another reason that it's so great to work with someone like you and work with a coach, because everybody is their own individual. They have their bio individuality. And a lot of times, even just like if you're trying to Google this, the information is overwhelming. It might not even apply to you in your situation. And actually being able to work with someone for your specific needs will absolutely be a game changer.
I mean, it's just cutting the line, right? It's like if you're driving to a meeting and Waze suddenly tells you that you can cut off 30 minutes to your journey and essentially cut it in more than half. It's like, would you take that and invest in someone who has the cheat codes, who has worked with hundreds of women to get the result you want? Or do you want to use ChatGPT to thwack together a plan that may or may not work and is certainly not going to hold you accountable or help you become the person who can sustain those changes?
Yeah, not agree more. Okay, well, I do like to move into my cozy bonfire question round. Are you ready for that?
Ready, baby.
All right. The first one I have here is, what is your favorite cozy morning ritual to start your day?
I start my day with warm water, squeeze of lemon, and a pinch of Celtic salt. Gets the bowels moving, it hydrates the gut, the brain, gets you started, and is far superior to help boost your energy levels than just mashing a coffee.
How do you feel about coffee first thing in the morning?
Do it after breakfast. You'll have better results. You'll burn fat faster.
Yeah, working on it.
Most people, it's the number one thing that people are resistant to, because it's a very emotional ritual. It's like we're so attached to it. We feel like we need it. It's our lifeblood, but no one has to change it. I just tell them the fastest way to get their result.
Yeah, I haven't been able to give that one up yet, but I do at least pair it with a bone broth protein powder.
That's good.
So I'm doing something.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, what's your go-to breakfast?
I do a lot of hormone balance smoothies. So the exact recipes that I give my clients, including plenty of phytonutrients, prebiotics, protein, and a whole bunch of antioxidants to just help start you out nice and strong, but a little bit heavier on the protein as well.
Love it. Okay, what is one small daily habit that has made the biggest difference in your energy?
Phone goes to bed 1 hour before I do, and I wait an hour to touch it when I wake up. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also the most simple thing I've ever done that's had the most dramatic impact on how my day unfolds and also my energy levels.
How long have you been doing that?
About a year. I was very resistant to it. It's something that I was telling my clients to do before I wasn't even embodying it, but it's made such a big difference. And I notice a difference when I don't comply to my own rule.
Yeah, you gotta respect yourself.
You know.
Yeah, I need to implement that. Did you know that you can turn off blue light on your phone?
Yeah, you can like turn on this red light mode activated.
I did not know that until 2 days ago.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, still obviously putting the phone away entirely is much better. But I thought I never even knew that. I'm wearing these blue light glasses when I could just turn off the blue light on my phone and you can set it up. I have it set up so it matches sunrise, sunset.
So smart.
So yeah, it's great. So
That,
I just want to throw that out there for anyone listening.
yeah, it's a game changer.
What's your favorite way to reset after a stressful day?
I'm a walker. I really like moving my body. And so that's how I connect with myself. That's how I kind of create a state of change in my body and connect with nature as well.
I agree. My big thing is always like go outside,
Mm-hmm.
go do something outside, and
Mm-hmm.
you will 100% feel better. I can guarantee it.
10 out of 10 chance.
What is one thing you always pack in your carry-on for healthy travel?
Oh, girl, let me get my scroll because you know I got some good stuff in there. I mean, I bring travel protein packets, travel organic coffee packets. I have a lot of like nice oils for my face that are rich in vitamin A to make sure I'm not looking crusty like the backside of a reptile when I get off the plane. And I also do a lot of magnesium on flights as well.
Mhm. Okay, that's interesting. I do take a magnesium supplement at night. It's called Brew. I don't know if you've ever heard of that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it's like a hot cocoa drink, and I love that. But I never thought of having magnesium on a flight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so supportive to your nervous system. And you can pack like little travel packets of it and just drop it, get a cup of warm water on the flight and have it there.
nice. And then what is a book or podcast or resource that is inspiring you right now?
One of my coaches, Krista Williams, has a podcast called Almost 30. And it's kind of the intersection of health, wellness, spirituality, and everything she does. I'm like, you are incredible. So I just binge that all the time.
And then what's one piece of advice that you would give every high achieving woman about her health?
At any moment, you can choose to change your circumstances. And if you need the cheat codes, there are coaches like myself and like you, Chelsea, who can help you get there faster. And so the biggest piece of advice I can give is just choose to stop spinning because so many women will accept feeling less than what they want to. They'll accept these crazy symptoms for years and years and decades and decades. And I look at these women and I'm like, how long have these issues been going on? And they're like, oh, I don't know, since I was 18. And it's like, you don't have to live like this. And if you are, that is literally a choice you are making. And so what I do is I challenge women, and through every single piece of content I put out, every single thing I put on my podcast, it's like helping women turn that corner where they choose to make a change. Because if you don't change, nothing changes. And that's savage advice, but it's just so true. So part of my job, I think, as, you know, a podcaster and a thought leader and a coach who's trying to grow on social media, I want to educate women and make them problem aware and make them solution aware so they can actually change their lives and stop spinning.
I love that. I know you say it is savage, but it's true, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have the choice to make a change. So I love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
My last question, which I always ask my guests, is what is making you feel cozy this week?
Right now, I'm doing my own protocol, and it's a liver detoxification protocol, but it feels so good in my body because it's very strategic about what you put in your body. So your digestion is really smooth, your energy levels start to come up, your sleep really improves. So I'm just feeling really rested, very calm, like my nervous system feels at bay. And it's just a reminder like, oh, yes, it's working.
What's making me cozy this week is that I've really been leaning into fall. And even though I live in the desert, but hey, it was 70 degrees this morning. So,
It's what fall looks like in
um,
Vegas, baby.
yeah. And I've been watching Twilight with my brother. It's like our fall activity.
So good.
So, yeah, we've been doing that. It's so bad, but so good. So, that's what's making me cozy this week.
I love it.
Okay, well, where can the listeners find you? Where can they find your work?
You can hit me up on Instagram. It's at Healthy with Chels, and there you'll find all my free resources. You know, I have a busy girl guide to hormonal weight loss for those women who just want to get started. They want a little starting point of some tips and tricks to actually move the scale fast. That is on my Instagram. And then I have a podcast called It's Not You, It's Your Hormones on Apple, Spotify, all the podcast places. And that gives, actionable tips and strategies for balancing your hormones as a busy woman.
Perfect. Thank you. I will link all of that in the show notes. And thank you so much, Chelsea, for being on the podcast today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Stay cozy, everyone. Bye.